In a rapidly shifting society, now more than ever, it is essential to stay grounded. Balance is key, but harmony is better. Here, we provide the keys to tap into the divine masculine without sacrificing the divine feminine, because confusion not transmuted becomes confusion transferred.
This is Divine Masculine Activated, a weekly Tuesday evening tap-in brought to you by Mastermind Connect and curated by the good brothers JD Weatherspoon and Cortni Grange. We invite you to grab your activation method of choice, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and bring your whole self into this space.
Brother.
Well, like we always do right about this time.
That intro never gets old, man.
It won't. And I'm not going to try to make it.
So groovy. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, older people of all ages, welcome to another episode of Divine Masculine Activated. I am Cortni Grange. He is...
Your favorite rapper. Or JD Weatherspoon, whatever.
AKA your country Geechee cousin.
Listen, all day.
Oh, man. But thank y'all for coming to tonight's episode. Let's talk about sex part 2, the Tantric edition. We have our good homie Krystal Tantric Yogi coming in a second. The energy's already big in this place, y'all. So we gonna keep ourselves on schedule so that we don't we don't do too many things too soon. So as always, kicking it off, why are we here? Divine Masculine Activated. Divine Masculinity is about activating your masculine energy without sacrificing your feminine energy. Y'all see that? Y'all love that. That's why we are here. JD and I, as men, have been nurtured often to believe, or were taught, that anything feminine is reserved for women. And masculinity is about being hard or forceful. And we choose to just not accept that logic. Right. And so we created DMA to unpack what we've been taught about masculinity and reshape how we think about femininity.
So, yeah. I mean, you pretty much nailed that. So why should you care, I guess, is the real question. What we feel, and we feel that you should feel as well, that this tantric edition of Let's Talk About Sex is really more about how we will share sexual energy as some of, if not the strongest, creative energy that we have as humans, right? It's powerful enough to create a living being. However, there are an infinite amount of pleasures and realities we can manifest using the same energy. Insert, in this case, Tantra, which means to loom, weave, or wrap. Thank you for the interpretive dance. The word Tantra comes from two words, Tanoti, to expand, which is the masculine side, and Trayati, which means to liberate.
You better roll that R.
All day, cunning linguists. And so the goal of utilizing both of them harmoniously is not just about sex. It's ultimately about practicing how you can harness the creativity that we can then transmute from our sexual energy. And that's really the foundation of today's conversation. So this episode really seeks to shed some light on how this applies to you.
But
so
of course,
let's talk about special guests.
That's it, because we can't do this one alone. This is too much to just have our polarities in the space. We needed to balance things out. And so Krystal Taylor is a certified Tantra yoga instructor who specializes in educating and supporting individuals towards sexual wholeness. Krystal has been teaching yoga since 2011 and practicing Tantra since 2015. Her unique coaching approach involves sharing ancient yogic philosophy, ancestral practices, as well as her own sensual yet down-to-earth techniques. That's what y'all probably seeing if you looked at her Instagram page or her YouTube or her Patreon. Very, very, very sensual techniques.
And
and so we'll let Krystal share a little bit more about her journey, but without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the immaculate, the incredible Krystal Tantric Yogi.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. So happy to be here.
How are you tonight? Thank you for joining us this evening. How Good. So let's see. As we get this thing started, good brother, like where we want to kick this thing off at?
I mean, like, I guess we can start at the beginning. So, you want to start with the audience, or do we want to loop in a bit more like color as to what brings Krystal here today and why she's like the Osiris of the shit towards the sex?
Talk about it. Well, as always, first and foremost, thank you to our audience for jumping in and talking to us. Peace, family. We see y'all in the comments already. Please do like, share, and comment. If you are in the comments, we can see you, and we will be answering your questions. So definitely jump in and let us know what's on your mind. But without that being done, we could not get to what we need to do now. JD,
All right,
kick us in.
So, all right, cool. Let's lead us in. So, Krystal, towards you at the beginning. Having done my own slight bit of social media / Google stalking, I did surmise that you had a very specific set of experiences that led you on your journey towards like sexual healing, right? It actually started from a very pragmatic place, which is near and dear to my heart, which is athletics, right? Do you want to give people a bit more context into how something like athletic injury led you to where you are now? And sacred root of meditation, I see that question. As soon as you're done with this, you're going to go right into this fire.
Can't wait.
Okay, yeah. So, first of all, someone had asked me about today. I went live on my Instagram. And it's like, how did you become so sexually confident? And I was like, well, I've always been one of those people that sought truth. I'm a truth seeker. And I've always been the type of person, and this may be because I'm an old soul. And if you're an old soul, you've lived for a while, I guess you start to figure out the shit that really matters, you know? So you want to live a life of integrity. You want to live a life that's connected to things beyond what you could just see, because your spirit is what fuels your life, right? So just to give you the kind of context into my personality and the things that meant a lot to me and my intentions when I was living before I stepped into these teachings. But I also was an athlete. I loved to move. I was an athlete from the time I was like in middle school all the way to college. I started to get back into running track and wanted to do the Olympic trials, but I got back into track after having 3 kids and not having ran for a while. So I was extremely talented, but I got injured because my foundation was not that great. And if you have children, and I had 3 vaginal births, and you have to work on your core, your pelvic floor, all that much, and then you go straight into running with Olympic athletes and collegiate athletes after not running that much, you know, that could wear on your body. And yeah, so, but I did actually pretty well, but I was overcompensating a lot. And so I had SI joint dysfunction, with sacroiliac dysfunction. And I was trying to correct it so that I could run. What happened was yoga was the only thing that really helped me, because my hips were literally just as tight and wound up and locked. Really, I have flexibility in other areas. Yeah, I had flexibility in other areas, but because there was such an imbalance in my hips, like they were locked quite a bit. And so I just got really deep into my yoga practice. But I always had the intention of seeking truth. And I had taken yoga teacher training. So my goal in trying to make this big dream come true was try to figure out the root of the cause of my dysfunction physically, but also like the energetically what was going on that led to me being where I was. So in doing that, doing a lot of yoga that focused on my hips, releasing them, unlocking them, opening them up, and trying to balance them, I started to have dreams. And so I tapped into my subconscious mind in ways that I didn't expect, and I started to unlock some sexual suppression. And I was like, where is this coming from? What is this about? And then I kind of went down a rabbit hole of just trying to figure that out, you know, with the yogic background, the track background, and with social media, just trying to talk to people, Kundalini yoga teachers, and even vaginal egg people, and just whoever I thought would listen or had any idea what this might be. And it led me down the path of Tantra. That's a short version of the story.
Right, because you said 3 kids at jump, like that's anything short ordered at all.
3 kids and track. That's what
and track at the maximum level of track. So like a lot of y'all don't understand track past high school or college, but that realm that you're talking about, like professional track versus most other professional athletics is a different world because all you really have is the competitions, right? Like there's no NBA for track. There's no MLS for track. So it's a different grind for those. And I first and foremost, as a former high school track athlete who never went past high school, I salute you for that journey because it is not an easy one. But you mentioned something there that was a part of my journey. So I just wanted to ask about it very quickly. That sexual suppression that came up. And so one of the rites of passages I did taught us about bliss and how bliss can be more of a portal than just a form of orgasmic or pleasure that we think about. And so when that portal's opened, anything can come through it. And we did a lot of work in that space. And for me, that was my like, what is this moment? Was it similar for you?
Well, I was doing orgasmic work, and this is how you know that like sexual energy is not just about, I guess, how we see pleasure and orgasm and arousal. Like you can literally have sexual energy flow through you through a yoga practice or through just opening your hips or through just fluid movement or, you know, so it's always there kind of brewing. And then I guess men probably understand this too, when like on a more carnal level, like if you haven't had sex for a while or haven't honored that part of yourself, cultivated, you know, allowed yourself to enjoy that. I mean, I went from college to kids, married, you know, and so I never really got to explore, didn't really pay attention to that. I was taking care of my kids, you know, I didn't explore them myself. So, you know, that can be unlocked, you know, if it's just been laying there, just ready to come up, you know.
What they say, like the nutty professor, just been waiting there, wanting and wanting.
That's it. That's a backlog. You don't want that backlog.
No.
I was completely unconscious because I was using my sexual energy to run. And that may have been what was fueling me. Like when I look back, I'm like, that's probably Kundalini sex energy I was running off of. That's probably why I was able to do what I was able to do.
Talk about it.
So,
spent up in your sacral chakra.
Your silk chakra.
Where?
Oh, he said, "Yo, silk the chakra." I love
it. That's my new handle. That's it. Don't take that.
Silk the chakra. Bam. That's it right there. That's a podcast.
I like that you mentioned that because that's a lot of reason why I think people are scared of these practices and why we're taught to suppress it. Because when you do open it up, or you do start to, you know what's going to come up, you know, what that's going to look like, and people are scared of that.
It's real business in there.
It's real business.
So I wanted to go ahead and just like set the container for this episode really quick. So last week we got a little bit deeper for y'all into how we start to understand and define these polarities of masculine and feminine. So the good brother JD mentioned that masculinity is often the container that houses the safe space for the feminine to grow in any sort of way. And so for this conversation, as JD mentioned, when we get into Tantra, right, to loom or to weave, coming from two separate words, Tanoti and Trayati, I can roll that R2. Tanoti in this case, which means to expand, would be your masculine energetic. And then Trayati, to liberate, would be your feminine. And so again, we always try to bring this back to a space where it can be grounded in masculine and feminine energy so that everyone understands how to activate this for themselves. That being said, Krystal, I would like to get right into this for my good brethren out there, all of the brothers, all of the men. In your opinion, what role does the harmony of masculine and feminine energy play in a man's sexual prowess?
The harmony in his prowess?
The harmony of masculine and feminine energy, like a man having that balance within himself.
Right.
What role does that play in his sexual prowess, if any?
I see. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that let's take it back to athletics because men like to think about athletics. If you physically wear yourself out, you push your body to the brink, but mentally, emotionally, you don't have the depth to sustain the work that you're doing. So say that you are balling on the court, you feel really athletic, but somebody makes you mad or they piss you off and you don't have enough composure to stay focused and not let that, distract you. The mental and the emotional depth is more feminine. the physical aspect is more masculine. So you will burn yourself out mentally if you don't cultivate that and learn some patience and some poise and or maybe even creatively allowing your emotions to flow through you and not going ballistic and trying to physically like just fight your way through things. You're going to last a lot longer in the game if you have some balance between your physical strength and your mental, emotional strength and depth. You know, and that doesn't mean that you're avoiding your emotions, but you know how to channel them in a way that fuels you forward, because everything is energetic, everything is fueled by the spirit. So the same thing sexually. If you are so concentrated on your physical performance, you are going to get burnt out. You will also not really be in touch intuitively and empathetically. Your best lovers are always going to be empathetic and be aware of your lover's emotions and also yours, and how that, you know, the reciprocity is happening. If you're just, all the energy is with your dick or all of it in your pelvic region, you that's a lot of pressure to put on your physical body and not allow for emotions and the energy to flow through you and be more balanced in your approach. And for most lovers, especially if you're holding more of a masculine space to a feminine space, as I've gotten in trouble by saying men and women, so I'm trying to work on that.
We have as well. We get in trouble too.
Well, the owner is right. Okay. But if you're holding more of a masculine space and you are trying to, and you're making love to someone that's holding a more feminine space, you're going to be usually a person who's feminine is going to be more receptive to you being more balanced emotionally along with the physical, and you being able to empathize. And so yeah, with your prowess and being able to, I guess, last in the bedroom or be, you know, I guess more effective, the balance of your mental and emotional depth and understanding and empathy combined with your physical presence is going to make for the most well-rounded experience. It also will allow you to be able to, you know, have more to pull from than just your physical nature.
Whew, if you didn't land that plane so lovely just now, thank you. Thank you. That's all we really want. Well, that's the whole conversation we wanted to put the container around, y'all. So now, ladies and gentlemen, if you out there, please drop a comment, drop a question. If you would like to ask, bring a question to the floor for us to pose. Good brother, I think we have one off jump. You want to adjust it? Yeah.
The sacred root of meditation. Let's highlight that. So what are some ways to create more balanced tantric experiences? I'm often left energetically drained by my husband. I'm a woman, by the way. Way to specify. One cannot assume. Here's 2021. Great question. Who wants to tee that off first? Because we know I'll run my mouth all day.
We got the expert in the house.
That's what I'm saying.
I know what I've done in those cases, but yeah, we got it. You want me to bring it back up?
So the question was, what's the question again? What are some ways to create more balanced tantric experiences? I'm often left energetically drained by my husband. I'm a woman, by the way. I would have to, I think there needs to be a conversation, there needs to be communication. It depends on the context of what's going on. So if it's like you're having intimacy or sexual experiences when you're too tired and you need to allow yourself time to relax, or is there a libido, like, you know, difference there in between? I mean, that could be a lot of things, but a tantric practice that maybe you could have with your lover is just breathing together. You can take the time to, like, hey babe, let's do like a breathing meditation so we can kind of empathize with how each other are feeling right now. Because what breathing does, especially if you do like some hand-heart meditations where, you know, you have one hand on your heart and the other person has a hand on your heart and you breathe together, you can sync your heartbeats together. When you sync your breath, your heartbeat syncing together, and then you can kind of empathize how the other person is feeling. That can set the tone, and maybe you could have a conversation that, you know, of how you're feeling and where you know, and where you're at together, and they can, you know, they can connect with you that way. But I don't know, it's like maybe a conversation needs to be had. I don't know what all's going on or why you're tired or what's going on.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I think what it sounds like is that Tantrism goes beyond the actual physical engagement and the sexual act. It sounds like Tantra sort of encompasses the entirety of like the connection experience, whether that be the verbal engagement, which leads to the emotional, and then the energetic sort of sync up. And that's really when the party starts. But it seems like the sex is more of a destination than it is the main focal point, and Tantrism is sort of like the car.
But that can take time to get to, you know, like I remember when, and this was in my late 20s, where somebody said to me, if you want to have sex on Saturday, start flirting with her on Monday. Right. And so just because of the concept of like building up the energetic exchange over time, or like foreplay doesn't start in the bedroom, foreplay starts several days before, when you're starting to curate the space from that masculine perspective, right? Like safety, trust is usually where you get the best exchanges in a sexual experience. But I know I didn't know that from jump. Like that took time. And this is coming from like, you know, a background where as a former athlete, I was always at a certain level of stamina. And so I figured to myself, as long as I could stay hard and keep going, I could do my job. And, you know, for years that made sense, right? And it got the job done. But as I started to get older and my sexual desire started to expand, and I wanted more than just what I was experiencing in my younger years, I had to start exploring more, because the women I would come in contact with would be like, tap, tap, I'm gonna go sit down. And it's like, yo, what happened? Like, I'm still fit. I still got all this. It's like, no, baby, like there's more. And it took time to accept it. But I say that for all the brothers that, like, if this is the first time you're hearing about this information, if Tantra has never come up before in the bedroom or anywhere for you, like there is a safe space to learn how to expand your sexual prowess, because it goes past your physical ability.
Yeah, it's much more interesting too. Like I understand that men's sexual energy is different. Like it's very like pew, pew, pew. But I'm just like, you know, there's ways to be more creative and experience each other than just, you know, over here, this position, like getting emotional can be fun sometimes, you know, playing mind games, not, you know, in a manipulative way that's bad. But I feel like when you have somebody's mind and you can get them emotionally connected, like that's when things get really exciting, when it's in a healthy way, you know, and that's when creativity blossoms and there's more trust there, and you can explore all different types of things. If not, most of your excitement is just going to become by experiencing somebody new all the time, which I guess initially might be great. But like you said, when you get older, and then depending on how you're using your sexual energy, may not even be healthy. Because I find that a lot of them will struggle with intimacy. And then when they want something with emotional depth, they train their sexual response to only be to respond to somebody new or something very physical. And then when they find a girl that they want to spend more time with and connect with, they don't know how, or sexually they don't respond because they've trained their body to only get excited from porn or from short-term experiences. And so it catches up with you later.
So now you're bringing me to another question, right? When I first got into this, one of my elders handed me this book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man by Montauk Chia. And obviously the title blew me up because it was like multi. So you mean like I can come more than once? And it was like
without necessarily ejaculating, by the way. They don't tell you
bingo.
That
so
box.
When I got into it,
on
like
the box.
you can't find that on the
You gotta read the instructions.
Listen, when I got into it, you know, you go through the breath work and learning where your perineum is and all these different things. But then it got into the conversation of, oh, what you got?
That was an awesome word. I wish we had like the more you know shooting star. What's a perineum? And Wellflow might want to find it.
Man, listen. See, I was gonna get into okay, so first and foremost, brothers, the perineum is also known as the $1 million spot. This is on your body.
Gooch, aka
ting, ting. And it can be where it's supposed to be, right? It's between the bottom of your testicles, the space between your testicles and your anus, right? So that area, but specifically towards the back, towards your actual anus, you'll find like a softer spot. It can be different in different people. I will be very forthcoming and tell you my joint was lower. So I was working for some time and it was like, that's not it. And then I found it and it was like, oh,
that's the one. That's where the money resides.
But this man where the money resides. But I say all that to say, for men, the exploration of your perineum is perineum. I might be saying this wrong.
It's perineum, but I wasn't going.
Perineum. I appreciate you. I know what the letters are. That's normally where the first part of unlocking a deeper orgasm comes from, right? Because that's when you start to understand not the ejaculation of your semen, but the pulsation that's happening in your body. It starts all the way back there. It doesn't start when it gets to the actual base of your penis. It starts way in the back. And so if you can feel it sooner, that means you now have more authority of where it's going. And so you can stop, pull, different things. Most brothers that, have been doing their best to be sexually prowessed, you go through that time period where like you might be doing your thing, you pull out, you calm yourself back down, you do that a couple times, and you can go for hours, right? That is a process of learning how to be a multi-orgasmic. Now, if you stop there, and that's all you'll learn. If you go deeper into it, like this book is talking about, you learn the different depths of male orgasm and that we can have more than one type of orgasm. So that brings me to the question. I'm sorry it took me so long to get there, but JD, I did need to explain what the money shot is. Excuse me, not money shot, the money spot. Ooh, my bad.
That's different.
But Krystal, so you are accountable for your own pleasure. I heard you mention this on one of your IG posts once, and I was so thankful to hear a woman say it because like it often feels like my lens is the wrong lens to communicate that, but I know it's true. And so can you quickly break down what that means and also like what it doesn't mean? You're accountable for your own orgasm.
And while she's doing that, can we highlight TK's comment about all of our... There we go. As we sip.
It's always good to have water on deck.
Let me get my water out.
We eat fruits and berries and such. Right?
Mm-hmm. I got you. But yes, ma'am. You're accountable for your own orgasm. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, I think what we have to build awareness. Like how you were talking about studying and becoming aware of your body and understanding where your climaxing begins, so that you can start to. It's about co-creation, right? That's been big for me lately. Like we are co-creators when it comes to the type of world that we want, what type of experiences we want to have. And that's the same with your sexual experiences. Somebody said sexual career. I like that term. When it comes to your sexual career, your sexual experiences, what you would like to have, you can be a co-creator in that. You do not have to like be dependent on something outside of yourself to hope that the experience is going to go well. You can educate yourself, learn about your body, connect, learn what it is that you like, maybe things that you're not ready for, or things that feel good to you, maybe not so much other ways. And then you can bring that, if you're by yourself, I guess you can just continue to cultivate that. But when you're with someone else, then you can communicate what feels good to you. You can share that with your lover. You can move your body in ways, because sometimes it's not even speaking, which speaking is nice. I find a lot of guys like when you tell them, oh, I like this, da 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 da. But you can feel it because you have more awareness. Oh yeah, my pussy likes this. Let me move over here. And then like your intuition kind of takes over. And that's that feminine, right? That emotional depth, that deeper awareness, that energetic awareness. You just have to move with what feels good. And so like all the tricks and stuff are great. A lot of that's external, doing the Meg Thee Stallion moves and stuff. But I think sex gets really good and orgasms are at that best, like you were saying, when you have this type of emotional intelligence and reciprocity of energy, and intuitively you can just feel what feels good and how you're connecting to whoever you are. And that's when your orgasms really start to, get heightened, when you just intuitively aware of like yourself and your own body and what feels good to you, because you're in touch. So many people are like just completely connected in their bodies. They don't know where their perineum ends. They don't know, where the orgasm starts, begins. They don't know, and the women especially, they're scared to touch themselves. They don't want to look at themselves. They don't know how they smell, taste, anything. So with that lack of awareness, like how can you really make sure that you have a pleasurable experience? You know, like you need to start self-study when it comes to your sexual energy and your sexuality and your pleasure. What it's not, as far as accountability, I don't know what it's not. I don't really know how to answer that question, but I might have to think about that for a second. But what it is, I think a lot of it is self-exploration and self-awareness and being able to take ownership of being a co-creator of the type of experiences that you would like to have.
That actually is a perfect alley-oop for this next point, right? Because right in the middle. So self-exploration, speaking from my personal experience, has made like a world of difference, because it takes a knowingness to understand how to truly commune with self, and then by extension enjoy all of like that emotional, physical, mental awareness with another person. And so I call it the frequency, FREAKQUENCY, just mixing both of them. But that's like your baseline flow of sexual exploration, right? And so what I found is that you go through a stage where it's very performative. You're doing what you think you're supposed to do based on whatever your knowledge base is, which for most of us, like me coming from a very strict, like Southern Baptist, Judeo-Christian background, like there's this automatic association of deep physical pleasure with like sin or shame or guilt. And so like it automatically manifests itself in a very like basal, borderline perverse nature, right? Because it's all hidden. Like there's no real synergy between what you want and what you allow yourself to experience, because there has to be some like it's naughty and not in a fun way. So my question for you is, if you ain't got your frequency yet, how do you go about exploring that from like the ground level up?
Yeah, I think like educating yourself like you guys are doing, like it takes a lot of unpacking. Like you need to start exploring, like one first thing I say about people and they want to understand Tantra, especially when it comes to sexual alchemy practices or things, I'm like, throw everything away you've ever learned about sex. Just throw it away and try to think of it from a place of like when you were a kid and just exploring before there was these concepts of what being a man was or a woman was, or what's pleasure, what's right, what's wrong, like from a place of like just innocence and seeing it as something natural. And you have to unpack a lot of the conditioning in order to get there. So maybe thinking about, what were you taught about sex? What were these things? Writing them down. What did you find were true as an adult through your own experiences? What served you and then what didn't, you know, and the things that seem like they weren't serving you, where did they come from? Do you want to keep those things, or do you want to get rid of them? You know, I think a lot of unpacking, and so that can come through talking, that can come through, reading different, doing your research, getting books that teach you about different ways and different perspectives of looking at sex, and getting in communities, sex positive communities that you can connect with, that feel good to you. Again, you have to be able to this is why pleasure is so important. You have to be able to do things that feel good to you, because if it feels off, you probably don't need to engage. And so when you're looking for sex positive groups, because some sex positive groups may not be on your frequency, they may not really feel good to you. So you need to engage in those groups, but educate yourself and be around people that are seeking healing. They want to be co-creators of their own life and take accountability for the healing, their sexual healing, and start to unpack that stuff. Start to invest in that part of yourself, and then that will kind of start leading you on a path of like getting there. And then there's meditations and practices. A lot of it starts with mindset, and you just have to let go of a lot of shit.
Well said.
that's a funny enough that kind of taps into Shah's question here with the navigating sexual communication and tapping into ego and tradition. But I think uncomfortable communication and dismissal versus healthy communication. Funny enough, you kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of that, because it starts with shedding light on those dark recesses, and then seeing what is there, and then doing what works best, and not doing what does not.
And also, where you started, Krystal, throw everything that you knew about sex away. Start there, throw it all away, and be childlike. And so navigate sexual communication based on what feels good, and not based on what you were taught. That for me was always was a huge one, and that's why when I did start on that journey, like my elders were like, just play with yourself for a while, learn you, go back to that, because that's where most of us started childlike, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I love to do, which can be very triggering for people, but I feel like to do it, is ask them, when think about with your first sexual experience. And a lot of people will think about like the first time they were a teenager and they had sex, meaning penetrative sex for most people with vulvas and penises, for most, and I'm talking usually, or I guess, if it's same sex, it could be penis, two vaginas or vulvas. But
all the different
sexual
formulations.
non-binary people. But most of the time, that's not our first sexual experience. I don't consider that. Usually, it's with a cousin or a little friend or something, and y'all are in the bed, spend the night, or on a playground, and somebody touched somebody, or you playing hide and go get it, or like those were your first sexual experiences, and they're like, oh, usually I start off by telling my first experience when I was like 3 or 4, and me and my little boyfriend, when I say boyfriend, I mean the friend that was a boy, we used to take baths together. Our mothers were similar in age and had us at a similar time. And we spent the night like we did normally, but they left something on TV, some late night show, and we saw it and we tried to imitate what we were seeing. It was it's super innocent, but we probably felt some type of tingling feeling or something. And so that memory stayed with me. And I think I remember telling my mom or something, and she was like, "Oh, you're not going over there no more." Like she made a big deal out of it. And I didn't realize it. I didn't remember it till later. But a lot of times those are our first experiences. So when we go back there, that kind of innocence of just kind of exploring and what felt good and how we really, what our sexual response really is triggered by, like that's, we need to get back to that, and start unpacking from there, I think, but a lot of people don't even remember those things, or they're deep down in their subconscious mind. And they always start from a place where they've already been conditioned to play some type of role. Like usually if you're a teenager, you already think that you've already watched some porn, or you've already heard your homeboys or homegirls say something. So you already have this idea of what sex is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like. But usually most of us have some type of sexual experience before that.
Okay. You want to go to your next talking point, or do we want
I was going to say the way it's flowing, I would prefer to just let it flow, because you're running with it right now. And this was also a really, really good one as well, because I have learned that breathing techniques, it's different from masculine and feminine exchanges, right? And so if I am looking to hold or ejaculate or reduce the actual flow of my semen, so like I want to last longer, so to speak, my breaths are deeper. I have to hold longer. But when I'm trying to actually experience, like when I just want to let pleasure take me over, my breaths get shorter. They may get longer, but I don't hold my breath at all. It's just like a constant flowing through me. Is that the same for you?
Are you talking about for me?
Or do you? Well, one, is that the same for you? But two, like if you're working with, let's say, like a male client, right? The different techniques that you see that are different for men and women with regards to mastering a lot of these practices.
Oh yeah, breathwork is everything. When it comes to any type of energy work, and sexual energy is no different. And I want people to think, obviously, sexual energy is one of the most powerful energies, and it's there's so much stigma around it that we treat it like it's so differently. But any type of energetic work, like energy rides the breath and it flows with blood flow. So that's how energy moves. And so your sexual energy is no different. So if you are trying to, I guess, control the energy, a lot of times your breath needs to be deeper and slower. But yes, if you want to quicken the movement of I guess of your sexual energy, or you want to heighten it, you want to make it my fire, you breathe faster. Like if you've done yoga, I think it's kata bali breath, or the breath of fire, you breathe faster, and so that's going to ignite the fire or the energy faster. So yeah, so that's how it is. If
Yeah.
you want it to be a little bit more controlled and you're channeling a deeper energy, and you want a slow build, you
Hmm.
open your mouth, you relax your jaw, you breathe deeply. But the nice thing about the slow, deep breath is it can build later to something really, really intense. Well, something that's quicker, it'll be more intense more quickly, but it might burn out a little bit faster and not be
That
as
part.
explosive. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And Chanel, to your point, yes. Just like there are love languages, there's also tons of language in this space. So knowing your love language definitely would enhance knowing how you would like to be communicated, because what feels good usually feels good, right? But you keep getting into things that, like, for me have been like, I've been waiting for somebody to actually understand this process more, because you don't really get it unless you practice it, right? And a lot of people just never got introduced to it. But the breath work specifically, so like, brothers, when we're talking about deep breathing, it's not just like, it's not coming from up here at all. You're breathing
Diaphragm,
from your
baby.
stomach, so it's more of a, you see how my chest doesn't move. It's coming from all down here, old school. If you were a boxer, or you were in any type of athletic sport where they told you to breathe through your hits, because in other sports you don't want to breathe through your hits because you'll, get short of breath. It's coming from that diaphragm work, like JD was saying. But let's see where we at now, brother. Ah,
Are we on schedule?
yeah, we good, we good. This one was one I was excited to get to. So I heard you mention one time sexuality is an aspect of consciousness, and that when disconnected, it affects your whole life. And that really resonated with me because of my studies, like I talked about, with sacred seed technology, multiple orgasms, things like that. But building deeply connected relationships with my life force was something that, as a man, I did not know it would go past, I'm gonna be the shit in bed type deal, or I'm gonna get more of what I want. It went to these other areas. And so, for example, I remember, like, an undergrad reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and he talked about sex transmutation for business purposes, right? So, like, you can transmute your sexual energy into something that helps you more for business. And I was like, what the hell is this little white man talking about? But now it's like, oh, shit, he was serious. So from your practice, what you experienced, and I would personally love if you could get personal with it, but I understand if you need to talk more from a consultative perspective. How does this flow from the bedroom into life, right? Our partnerships, our ability to communicate, be more patient, create things, all of that different stuff. And I'm talking specifically for men, because the retention of our seed, right, is different
Okay.
than the retention of yours. And the way I always explain it is, a woman lets that egg go every single month. That's the release, right? With orgasm, it's different for a woman. So with men, the semen is the life force. Orgasm, that's what we have to learn how to separate. But for men, can you talk a little bit about the value of, like, harnessing our sexual energy towards other parts of our life?
Yeah, I think there are some similarities as far as like sexual energy, or we'll say sacral chakra energy, being an aspect of consciousness. I think it's really important for people to know that your sexual energy has um, responsibilities outside of just making babies or providing pleasure. This energy is where we learn and understand duality. It's where we start to make choices. It's also where we where we how we relate to people. It's also where we we fuel our inner strength and our prowess from, and I'm not just talking from a place of like sex, but from a place of like, if you want to get up and go and get things done and be excited about life, like it's also that energy as well. I guess the best example when we're talking about men and releasing their energy, I was working with someone and he was having issues with kind of porn addiction. And what he defined is that when he want to accomplish something, he'd have a goal and he'd be really excited about it. But then he watched porn, and the excitement that he got from thinking about his goals would go into the release of the orgasm when he watched porn. So then once he got that heightened excitement and it was gone, he got very complacent because the energy that he was excited about that he could have put into a goal of accomplishing something in his life went to giving it to a release, an orgasm, to whatever he was watching. And so, you know, when a guy, you know, busts a nut, like, all right, I'm ready to do, like that's kind of the place that they go. So it has a subconscious and a conscious effect on your mind and you being complacent because there's so much energy there. That's the same energy that you use to get up and go and want to do things. So if you aren't channeling that energy towards your thoughts and your ideas and again creating the life that you want, then it can be wasted on, I guess, the Instagram model that you get excited about, or the porn, or this honey that you've seen with the big ass, you know, like you become very easily distracted. And so the energy that could be used towards, you know, developing something that could create something that's a little bit more long-standing and build a legacy or something you could build your life with, you're using that energy that makes you want to get up and go and motivate you, the dopamine effect and everything that it has on your brain to motivate you to make choices that are good for you. You're using it on carnal pleasure. So when you need that dopamine effect and that get up and go to do things that require, you know, a more like long-term resiliency, so not instant gratification, you don't have it because you're using it on something else. And sexual energy and the release of that can be very addictive. You get addicted to the dopamine that's going off, the nerve endings firing and all that stuff, and you get used to that. Oh, I can get this really quickly. And so you're training your mind to just get used to that, you know? And so it's hard for you to pull away from that because you've trained your mind to enjoy that over and over and over again. So, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that we can get into when it comes to like knowing your worth and stuff when it comes to your sexual energy. But when I think about men, that's the thing that stands out for me the most is just, you know, training your sexual response and your pleasure principle to be instantly gratifying instead of investing that same get up and go and dopamine effect and all the great hormones that trigger the brain to tell you you're on the right path, and to continue to do that, you are misusing it. And so then you know, that investment of energy is no longer going towards long-term goals. It's going towards just, you know, it's kind of like crack, you know,
quick hits. That's it.
It's exactly like
quick hits.
Dopamine is like, that's the pleasure center. Like if you do a line of coke or any other euphoric drug, like that's what your brain is getting dumped with, which is why it's such a habit forming practice. Like that's where the addiction comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and for me personally as a woman, it was more just knowing my own worth and knowing that I deserved pleasure. And when a woman understands her power, her sexual energy and her power, and knowing that she deserves pleasure, usually she can make better decisions for herself. You know, she's able to be more decisive. Yeah, she understands that, you know, I deserve to have, you know, the things that I want. I deserve to be paid this amount of money so that I can live the life that I want to live. You're able to speak up because your mouth and your genitals or your mouth and your yoni are connected. If a woman is really enjoying herself and she's able to release, like, but if she's pent up, it's like, you know, she can't, you know, she can't release, you know. So being able to speak up for yourself, knowing your worth, having a better relationship with what you want to call into your life and owning that and knowing you deserve that because you're used to doing things that make you feel good. And so you're like, yeah, this feels good, you know. And so for me as a woman, that's been very significant for me. as far as my sexual energy and creating the life that I want.
So
Makes sense.
once again, and as your mouth and your yoni are connected, lips is lips.
Bang bang.
But I think you touched on a really good point. You're throwing great alley-oops tonight. Like, I'm gonna start calling you like Steve Nash or something.
Come on, Chris Paul.
Get me. So pleasure as in a guiding principle, right? So pleasure as a virtue versus denial of self-pleasure as a virtue, which is what many of us like operate from. In your tantric journey, what was one area of expansion? Back to this vocabulary. This is always on the quiz. What was one area of expansion that you struggle with, and one area of liberation that you struggle with? Taking that back to that masculine, feminine polarity dynamic.
Expansion. I think it goes back to just, for me personally, feelings of unworth, and not being afraid to expand into things that I felt like I wanted. I wasn't sure if I deserved them, or having to feel like I had to do something to earn them. And that's for a long time, I think. And when it comes to my expansion and how I see myself, like being myself unapologetic, and especially in this type of walk as a woman, sharing myself sensually the way that I do, that comes naturally to me. And I think a lot of it was because I was repressed for a really long time. I was a mother and a wife, and I was playing a very traditional role. So to step into that on social media in front of everybody, like I'm y'all are seeing my evolvement. I'm doing this stuff because I think it's important to share, but I'm also doing this because it's a part of my growing process. So not being scared to expand fully and be myself unapologetically has been challenging, but I'm getting better at it. And liberation, I think, is liberating myself from the conditioning that I've been taught. I grew up Judeo-Christian background, Baptist church. My mom probably still doesn't understand what I do. My dad kind of did before he passed away. I was trying to explain it to him. But just liberating myself from what I've been taught and being able to step into the unknown, not really knowing what are the consequences of me putting myself out there like that, just kind of following my heart. And I've had a lot of heartache and heartbreaks and disappointment. It's helped, liberate me from this idea that I need to be attached to people's expectations or like worry about how they see me. And trusting my path. That's probably been, the hardest thing, but it's been very liberating. And I've been able to expand as I release that and mature, and grow. And then just, we didn't get into this, which is probably what you would have wanted to when we're talking about transmuting sexual energy and consciousness. So we learn about God through understanding that we are a microcosm of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And so our consciousness, we divide that up so that we can understand our makeup. And so our sexual energy is an aspect of consciousness, just in understanding the mind and who we are as human beings and energetic beings. So when we liberate ourselves from the conditioning, heal ourselves sexually, that fuels our higher consciousness, that fuels our expansion. And so I've gained so much wisdom from digging into my subconsciousness, understanding my sexual energy, because that's an aspect of who I am. Just think, if you just decide that there's a part of you that you just completely neglect, that takes away a lot of your power. And also there's a whole bunch of wisdom that you're missing because you just don't know about it. So the more you understand about this part of your spirit, we'll say, the more you expand your thoughts. And so I've gained so much wisdom and understanding of like, oh, this is why the reptilian part of my brain or my human nature, helps me survive in the world, and how I need to yoke that together so I can be a well-rounded human being and not neglect this part of myself because I need this, because like sexual energy is not just about like having sex and enjoying it. It's also about honoring your emotions and, feeling angry. You need to feel angry. It's about your survival. And, it's that evolutionary wisdom, intelligence that comes from Mother Earth. You can't neglect that, you're a human being. So
absolutely. Thank you for putting that beautiful, beautiful red rope. I ain't gonna say ribbon because we're talking about play this time around. Putting that beautiful packaging around it, because that does drive it all the way back home for the concept of weaving, right? Tantra is to weave. And so as we talk about masculine and feminine energy, really what we're getting into, y'all, is just the ability to weave between yourself, right? What you got going on over here, what you got going on over here, they are both important, and both of them need to be felt, thought about, experienced for you to know who you fully are. If not, you're going to stay on whatever level you chose to stop at. But with that being said, audience, as we have gotten to this point with Krystal, where we thank you so much for coming in. You have been an incredible guest. I would say that this is probably the most engaging conversation that we have had with a guest, because it's like we're students, like, so tell us more, like, keep going. But that said, like, we want to be fully respectful of your time. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate you. Before you head out, what's going on in your world? What do you have going on? What would you like our people to know, that where they can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, of course, Krystal _ Tantric Yogi, and I'm on YouTube, Krystal Tantric Yogi. I have a men's sacred sexuality retreat this weekend, Friday and Saturday, and we will start to cover a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, unpacking sexual history, and really defining what does divine masculinity really look like. What makes a man's sexuality sacred? What does that really mean? We start to dive into that, and a lot of great stuff comes from that. We've had one, we're having a second one. I've got a Tantra yoga class, so if you want to get into the physical practice, I've only got 2 left for the next couple weeks. Tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. You can do an online class with me. So that's tomorrow, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
Eastern Standard Time.
There we go.
Yeah, and the next thing I think is for women. I've got so much stuff going on. Yeah, the other things are for women, but anyone wanting a 21-day meditation and masturbation course that starts May 7th, and that we'll explore women's sacred sexuality and being accountable for your own pleasure and for that, and a sex doula training in May as well. So if you think you would like to work with people and assist in their healing process, not as a sex therapist, but assist and provide support, we have a training that you get a certification, so we can training that's going on May 21st through the 23rd.
Tad down. And it was so lovely how you started that off with the men's sacred sexual retreat. I swear you must have played basketball as well as ran track, because these alley-oops are just
I did. That's my favorite sport. My favorite sport. I just tore my ACL, and so I stuck with track, because they were like, "You want to get a scholarship, college scholarship? Just stick to one sport." So I did. But I love track. I mean, I love basketball. It's my favorite.
Cool. Krystal, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming through. Peace.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
All right. Whoo, boy.
Well, that was that.
Yeah, that escalated quickly. So just by way of closing us out with all good things, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow Mastermind Connect on Instagram and on Facebook if you want to hear more of these conversations. If you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast. If you're on YouTube, if you are also on YouTube, like, comment, share this with somebody. We want to keep these conversations going around our communities. In addition to that, we wanted to close y'all out with just something good and nutritious, right? Like we always talk about. So like tonight, we're going to start this new tradition of what we call activate the ability. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm completely off track with that. We're going to start this new tradition. Latitude. And I can't find a thing. Y'all killing me. I'm sorry, Manny. We need you at moments like this. I'm not doing this. Yes, I don't know where it went, but it's in here somewhere. So we're just going to do it like this. Both gratitude, attitude, and latitude.
Boom.
First and foremost, we have our gratitude going out to Krystal Tantric Yogi. Thank you for jumping up in here with us today. Everybody go follow her, subscribe to her YouTube channel, all that good, beautiful, crazy stuff.
Attitude. Stay dangerous. Because realistically, you're responsible for your own safety. And if there's one thing that we've learned in particular, they ain't going to do it for you.
No, they won't. It ain't going to bang unless you beat it. And lastly, the latitude. This is just something we want to drop into you all for understanding your bodies. So it is impossible to learn elsewhere what we are incapable of learning within our own bodies.
Because there's more wisdom below the neck than there is inside the head. So I got to
all the way through. I'm going to drop this for y'all real quick so y'all can see it. We talked about a few things today. For men, for the brothers, The Multi-Orgasmic Man by Mantak Chia. This is a great book for you to start exploring more of your masculine essence. Another book by Mantak Chia that is incredible for this topic, Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy. There is also one for women, Cultivating Female Sexual Energy, so y'all can work together. And one of my personal favorites, Urban Tantra. This book right here takes it to another level. So if you want to explore this from a personal perspective, a partnership perspective, or just really start to dig into more of like, what is this stuff that Krystal has learned? This is one of those books that'll help you with that. Well,
so sad to see you go. I mean, we at the end, we over an hour.
Yeah.
I think for the audience, let's keep that moving. Listen, it's a movement.
We do these things out here.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all so much. Hey, what up, Josh?
Definitely continue this conversation. Check it out. Try it with a relationship in your life that you have a desire to either liberate or expand. If you so feel compelled, go ahead and drop a thing on social, whether that be IG. Maybe you want to comment on this under the Facebook Live. Maybe you want to go live yourself. But if you do happen to make any posts, go ahead and put that DMA hashtags or Divine Masculine Activated or Tantric. Surprise us.
We'll catch it. We'll follow it. We'll throw the alley-oop. Well, you'll throw the alley-oop. Hopefully, we'll dunk it on that one. With that said, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. Ooh, next week is the first week of May, right?
Next week is the first week of May.
Next week, so the month of May, we are going to have My Sister's Keeper.
The series, mini-series.
A series. Each week we come on, we are going to be talking to a different phenomenal woman, allowing this platform to be her platform. Y'all will not want to miss it. Each week is about to be hopping with some heat from the divine feminine as well as from the women who we bring into this space. So thank y'all as always.
Until such time.
Peace and love.